Good afternoon, crafters. My name is Juanette, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States. Thank you for joining me on my YouTube channel, Juanette's Paper Crafts. Today we are going to be making Halloween shaker bags. These are so cute. These three are the ones that I made for my grandchildren to put treats in them and to give them for Halloween. That's for my granddaughter with those little witches' hats. So to make this project, you will need 2 pieces of pattern paper. I chose the Monster Bash Haunted Houses from Stampin' Up! And you will need these pieces to be 9.5 by 12. We're going to work on the front of the bag first. So along the 9.5-inch side, you're going to score at 6 and 9. Then you're going to rotate it to the 12-inch side, and you're going to score at 3 inches. Then you are going to flip your paper over so that that skinny 9-inch line is at the top of your score board. And you are going to score at 4.5 inches, but only to the second score line, not all the way across. This will prevent you from having a score line over the front of your bag, which is what I'm showing you right there. Then you're going to take your paper, place it back on your score mechanism, whatever you use, and you are going to score at 7.5 inches, which is in between the 6 and 9-inch score lines, and you're going to score it down to that 4.5-inch score line. So you have a mountain fold there, then a valley fold, then another mountain fold. And so what you're going to do is then create your score lines so that the bag will fold flat. So because I am filming this in California, I don't have all my supplies that I have in Arizona. So all I had for scoring was my bone folder and a ruler. It was too difficult to put the paper in my Stampin' Up! Trimmer for scoring. So you're going to score from the 7.5-inch in down to the corner of the 4.5-inch. Then fold and burnish your score lines. That was the 9-inch, then there's the 6-inch. That bottom one is the 3-inch. And then that small one to the right is the 4.5-inch. But again, it does not go all the way across your cardstock there. And that is the front of your bag. Now to make the back of your bag, it's basically the same thing with one exception. Again, you're going to take a piece of 9.5 by 12-inch pattern paper, put it in your score pal, and score along the 6-inch and 9-inch. Then you're going to rotate your paper to the 12-inch side, and just like before, score at 3 inches all the way across. Now, because this is the back of your bag and we want it to be able to fold flat, you are going to score at 4.5, but all the way across. Then turn your paper back to the 9.5-inch area, and you're going to score at 7.5 down to the 4.5-inch score line. So again, line it up, 7.5. This is going to be your valley fold, and score from the top down to that 4.5-inch score line. And then you're going to do just like before and create those triangles so that the back of the bag will fold flat. So you have a mountain fold, a valley fold, then a mountain fold. Score from the 7.5-inch mark down to the 4.5-inch mark, creating a triangle on both sides. Then fold and burnish both of those. I do not want to work. Okay. So with the phone call from work, I must have got a little bit confused because I forgot to turn the camera on to continue filming. So I basically finished that bag and then realized it had not been filmed. So I started all over again with different pattern. But I've done exactly the same thing with this pattern paper as I did with the haunted house one. So now you're going to cut up at the 4.5-inch mark. Now these are at the bottom. Cut that little rectangle out, then wedge it. Then you cut that score line, which was your 6-inch score line, up to the 4.5-inch score line. Then cut wedges on both sides. This will make it easier for folding your bag in and taping it down. And then snip off a little wedge off the top. So this is what you have. You have that longer flap, which is the bottom of your box. Then this other flap at the bottom that will be tucked in and glued to the bottom of the bag. Your 9-inch mountain fold, 7.5-inch valley fold, and then 6-inch, again, a mountain fold. See how that tucks in there? And then we will glue that down, and that will be the front of your bag. So what you're going to do with the second piece of cardstock, or basically the back of your bag, you're going to cut it exactly the same way. Up to that 4.5-inch score line on both sides, a wedge out of both of them, a wedge at that little bottom of that 9-inch score line, and a little bit at the top. It is exactly the same cutting. Your mountain fold, valley fold, mountain fold, and then you can see how, because you have that other fold that went completely across the back, it will fold flat. And later on, you're going to be able to see that. Now I'm going to show you how I cut out the shaker part of my window. This I had pressed the record button on my camera. So you're going to want to center whatever shape you're using. With this one, I'm using a square. And you're going to cut out the smaller of the two squares that you use of dies. This one was a 2.5-inch. Then you're going to cut out 2 pieces of acetate that are 2 7/8 or bigger than the window. Put double-sided tape all around it. Remove the backing off of it. Turn your paper over so the inside, what will be the inside of the bag, is facing toward you, and place that acetate window over the cutout die cut window. Then you're going to take whatever sequins you're using. I'm using a combination of orange ones and black ones. And I'm adding them to that acetate piece, which will be the inside of my window. Now using the dies, the square dies, both the 2 7/8 and 2.5 inch, I cut a window, that black window, out of cardstock, applied acetate to it, and then used the Stampin' Up! Foam adhesive strips and placed them all around that black window frame that has acetate also glued to it. I really like the Stampin' Up! Foam adhesive because it's actually higher than a lot of different foam tapes, and so you're able to have more of a shaker feature with your cards. Your sequins are able to move around a little bit more easily. So then you adhere that on top of that window, and so you have acetate between both sides, and your sequins are in the middle, and they shake nicely. Now to glue your bag together, you're going to apply double-sided tape to that small score line there that was wedged out. I think it was the 9-inch. Apply double-sided tape to it. On the front side, of both pieces of your pattern paper. And then you're going to have your flaps at the bottom, which is basically the bottom of your bag. Remove one of the double-sided tapes and line the second bag over the top of it. Now I added a little bit of liquid glue here just to give it a little bit more support. And what you're going to want to do is make sure that both of your score lines at the bottom, which are the 3-inch score lines, match up. Then if it doesn't match up completely perfectly at the top, you can just snip that and even that out, but mine lined up quite well. So then you have your double-sided tape on that other small score line. Remove it. And then just basically fold over the front of your bag so that it meets that back area and what you will have then basically is your bag. So to glue it, you put glue on the 2 small flaps on the inside. I had made a mistake and put it on the outside, so I'm kind of having to finagle around, because what you want to do is that larger flap, you want to tuck it in so that it is in the bottom of your bag, and so your bag looks nice and neat on the inside. Then, like I said, you glue down both tabs, then add glue to that other bottom tab. I think I need to refill my glue bottle there. I'm going to have to put a little muscle into it. And then just adhere that last tab to the bottom of your bag. Turn it over, and then you could either put a ruler or your hand down into the bag to make sure there's a good connection between all those pieces. Now to start decorating it, I took the piece of cardstock that was cut out of that window. I ran it through that embossing folder, which is in the the holiday catalog. You're going to apply glue to both sides. And I folded it in half so that it was even on both sides. And then you're going to glue it to the top of your bag, centering it in between the shaker window. Then take the other piece of window. Now, who has a scalpel in their home? Yes, a nurse. So you're going to cut on both sides of the score line, cutting out a small little area so that you can put that handle in there to hide it a little bit. That is a 1 inch by 10 inch piece of cardstock that I used from the original paper. Just slip that in, put a little bit of glue underneath it, make sure it's nice and even. Then apply glue over both sides. And again, I had folded it in half after I had cut it out, and line it up in the back of the bag, making sure it's centered. So I closed the bag and then adjusted that back handle area so that it would be centered. Now what I'm going to do is just set that aside for a little bit and let that glue dry. So to decorate the bag, I took the dies from Word Wishes found on page 197 of the annual catalog, and there are words: St. Patrick's, Valentine's, New Year's, Happy, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween, Mary, Mother's, Easter, Day, and Father's. That's again in the annual catalog on page 197, and I die cut the word Happy Halloween out. I cut it out in crushed curry, then I cut it out in pumpkin pie, and then I cut it out 3 times in the basic black. I glued them to that piece of embossed, torn cardstock. And then added some Wink of Stella over the top of it to give it some sparkle, and added those black dimensionals from Stampin' Up! To the back of it to give it a little bit of height. Now, this is in the holiday catalog, and we're not sure if it's going to carry over. So I'm definitely going to stock up so that I have plenty. And there's just a picture of those Word Wishes dies. So now that my glue has dried, I'm going to take just your basic hole punch, and I'm going to slip it into the back on both sides of the handle, push it all the way as far as it will go in, and punch a hole on the right hand side, and then again on the left hand side. Then turn the bag over. I'm going to line it up and mark with a pencil where those holes are so that they will line up perfectly to the front of the bag. And then again, just take that basic hole punch and punch both of those holes out on the front of the bag. Then I took about 25 inches of retired Stampin' Up! Ribbon. It's black with silver little speckles on it. You thread it through the back of the bag. Then to the front of the bag on both sides. And you could use any kind or color of ribbon you would like. If you wanted to make the holes bigger using a crocodile, you could use thicker ribbon, whatever you like. And again, if I was home in Arizona, I would have maybe made the shaker part of that bag a little bit bigger because I have larger dies there. But this just goes to show you that you don't need a lot of supplies to make some really fun things. So then I took the backs off of the black dimensionals and thought I was going to put it on the front of the bag, but changed my mind and decided to put it on the back of the bag. And you can see how folding up that bag makes it lay nice and flat. So if you wanted to make a bunch of these, then have them on hand. You could do Christmas, you could do birthday, you could do all kinds of fun holidays and have them in your stash for future use. Then I took a few of the Monster Bash stickers that is in the holiday catalog and added them to the front of the bag just for some interest. There's a raven, there's skull bones, there's a tombstone. I think I ended up adding a couple of more. So here are my shaker Halloween bags to give to my grandchildren. If you would like to shop with me, please do at JuanetteHewitt.stampinup.net. And I would like to acknowledge Sam at Mixed Up Craft for her inspiration.